Hello everyone and welcome to the lecture on AWS Direct Connect. So this lecture will contain all these topics. What is AWS Direct Connect? High level overview, network requirements, AWS Direct Connect pricing, accessing AWS services via Direct Connect gateway, virtual interface, virtual private gateway, transit virtual interface, and multi-account support for Direct Connect gateway. So what is AWS Direct Connect? AWS Direct Connect is a fully managed service that allows you to establish a dedicated physical network connection between your on-premises network or data center and AWS. The service enables you to connect your network to one of the AWS Direct Connect locations strategically placed around the world. The connection is made using a standard Ethernet fiber optic cable with one end connected to your router and the other to an AWS Direct Connect router. AWS Direct Connect provides a private, high bandwidth, low latency connection between your network and AWS, ensuring fast and secure data transfer. By using AWS Direct Connect, you can bypass the public internet, reducing the risk of network congestion and potential security threats. With AWS Direct Connect, you can create virtual interfaces directly to public AWS services such as Amazon S3 for efficient and secure access to your data. The service also allows you to create virtual interfaces to Amazon VPC, enabling you to launch AWS resources in a logically isolated virtual network for enhanced security and control. So high level overview. So this is how the Direct Connect looks like. So basically you have your AWS cloud, you have a region, and you have a virtual private cloud. So this is private networking, and probably you may be running some instances in, let's say, a private subnet or something, and you have a VPC. Then you have public services like S3 and Amazon S3 Glacier just for representation. Then what you do for Direct Connect, AWS has Direct Connect locations with Direct Connect, let's say with service providers or the physical infrastructure providers. So what you have to do, like let's say they have their own Direct Connect cage. So if you are working with their one of the partners or customer, you can place the physical, you can place your own customer or partner router, and this will connect physically, right? So this will connect physically with their Direct Connect cage, and it has AWS connection endpoint. So there are two routers which will be connecting physically, and this will be connecting to your on-premises network over here. So you have a router firewall, let's say, which connects to your, you have the ownership. So you have put a router over here, and this will connect physically, and this belongs to AWS. Now this, via this router, it will connect physically to the actual AWS infrastructure. So all the connection is happening privately, securely, and it's much higher performance because we are physically connecting all our components, and we are using like physical connection. So this is how Direct Connect looks like. So it's a physical connection, and it's faster and much more secure, but it comes with a high price. Okay, some network requirements. This is just some technical requirements to be aware of. So your network is co-located with an existing AWS Direct Connect location. You are working with an AWS Direct Connect partner who is a member of AWS Partner Network APN, and you are working with an independent service provider to connect to AWS Direct Connect. So one of the out of three, you should meet one of the conditions. So then only you will be able to place your router either by yourself or through some partner. And some other requirements are, so this is some physical network requirements. So your network must use a single mode fiber with 1000 base LX transceiver for 1 gigabit Ethernet, 10 G base LR transceiver for 10 gigabit, or a 100 G base LR4 for 100 gigabit Ethernet. Auto negotiation for a port must be disabled for a connection with a port speed of more than 1 Gbps. However, depending on AWS Direct Connect endpoint, serving your connection. Auto negotiation might need to be enabled or disabled for 1 Gbps connections. 802.1q VLAN encapsulation must be supported across the entire connection, including intermediate devices. Your device must support Border Gateway Protocol (BGP) and BGP MD5 authentication, and this is optional. You can configure bidirectional forwarding detection (BFD) on your network. Asynchronous BFD is automatically enabled for each AWS Direct Connect virtual interface. It is absolutely enabled for Direct Connect virtual interfaces. It is automatically enabled for Direct Connect virtual interfaces, but does not take effect until you configure it on your router. Okay, now coming to the pricing. AWS Direct Connect pricing consists of two main components. One is port hours, which are based on the capacity and type of connection, and outbound data transfer charges. Port hour pricing. So the cost of port hours is determined by the capacity of the connection. It can be 1 Gbps or 10 Gbps. And the type of connection, which can be either a dedicated connection or a hosted connection. Charges for data transfer out through private interfaces and transit virtual interfaces are allocated to the AWS account responsible for the data transfer, ensuring accurate billing. AWS does not impose any extra charges for using a multi-account AWS Direct Connect gateway, which simplifies cost management across multiple accounts. So this is we are talking about multiple AWS accounts who may be part of AWS organization or just grouped together. When outbound traffic from publicly accessible addressable AWS resources such as Amazon S3 buckets or EC2 instances is destined for public prefixes owned by same AWS payer account and actively advertised through a Direct Connect public virtual interfaces, the data transfer out usage is metered at the AWS Direct Connect data transfer rate, which provides cost-effective data transfer pricing. Okay, now some notes on accessing AWS services. So AWS Direct Connect locations in public regions or AWS Gov Cloud US can access public services in any other public region. So if you have Direct Connect configured in one of the regions, you can access all other public regions. So US East 1 can access, let's say, AP Southeast 1 or anywhere like Europe, EU West 1, EU East 1, like that. It can directly access all other regions. In addition, AWS Direct Connect connections in public regions or AWS Gov Cloud US can be configured to access a VPC in your account in any other public region also. So VPC also, it can access public services and VPC. So this is public services and this is private VPC, but in any other regions. So you can think of it all the regions. So you just have to configure one, and it will traverse via the AWS backbone, the physical infrastructure. So you can therefore use a single AWS Direct Connect connection to build a multi-region services. All networking traffic remains on the AWS global network backbone, regardless of whether you access public AWS services or a VPC in another region. So we are emphasizing VPC because it's virtual private cloud. So it will traverse even though we are accessing VPC in some other region, it would still be able to be accessible. Okay, to access public resources in a remote region, you must set up public virtual interface and establish a Border Gateway Protocol (BGP) session. After you have created a public virtual interface and established a BGP session to it, your router learns the routes of the other public AWS regions. You can create a Direct Connect gateway in any public region. So you have to create only one Direct Connect gateway in one of the regions, and then you are good to go. Use it to connect your AWS Direct Connect connection over a private virtual interface to VPCs. So every time I talk about private virtual interfaces, it is for VPC, which is virtual private clouds. in your account that are located in different regions or to a transit gateway. Okay, now let's see what is Direct Connect Gateway. An AWS Direct Connect Gateway is a grouping of virtual private gateways, VGWs, virtual private gateways, and private virtual interfaces, VIFs, private VIFs. A Direct Connect Gateway is a globally available resource, so this object, and you can create the AWS Direct Connect Gateway in any region and access it from all other regions, as I talked about. And this includes AWS Gulf Cloud US, but it currently accepts the AWS China regions, but so globally, so you can just think globally, except China, and use AWS Direct Connect Gateway to connect your VPCs. You associate an AWS Direct Connect Gateway with either one of the following gateways. It could be a transit gateway when you have multiple VPCs in the same region. So transit gateway when you have multiple VPCs in the same region, or a virtual private gateway. Okay, next is virtual interface. It can be public or private. A virtual interface is necessary to access AWS services and is either public or private. A public virtual interface enables access to public services such as Amazon S3. As we know, we can directly access S3 through S3 through web or through CLI. So that's why S3 is special, because we will access it through the public virtual interface. But in this case, when we use AWS Direct Connect, we will be using the physical AWS network backbone, not the public internet. Private virtual interface enables access to VPC. Next is virtual private gateway. A virtual private gateway is part of a VPC that provides edge routing for AWS managed VPN connections and AWS Direct Connect connections. So this is used for two purposes. One is Direct Connect connections, or it could be VPN connections, which we have seen in the other lectures. But so this main purpose is to connect to Direct Connect connection through a Direct Connect gateway. So you associate an AWS Direct Connect gateway. So this object, you associate an AWS Direct Connect gateway with the virtual private gateway for the VPC. So this sits at the edge of VPC. So all communication goes via this. So it will traverse via this. So let's say you have the EC2, the traffic would go through this, and it will connect to Direct Connect gateway, which is part of a Direct Connect connection. So these two objects will have a bidirectional communication. And next is transit virtual interface. A transit virtual interface is a type of virtual interface you can create on any AWS Direct Connect connection. A transit virtual interface can only be attached to an AWS Direct Connect gateway. So it's only for Direct Connect gateway object. So this is transit virtual interface, and you can use an AWS Direct Connect gateway attached with one or more transit virtual interfaces to interface with up to 6 AWS transit gateways in any supported AWS regions. And similar to the private virtual interface, you can establish one IPv4 BGP session and one IPv6 BGP session over a single transit virtual interface. So this is connecting to a Direct Connect gateway over here, right? And this in turn can be used, Direct Connect gateway can be used in this kind of a scenario. It can be used with up to 6 AWS transit gateways. So up to 6 transit gateway in any of the supported. So it may not be in the same region. So this is maybe, let's say, in region 1, region 2, region 3. So this next feature is multi-account support for AWS Direct Connect gateway. So multi-account support for AWS Direct Connect gateway, this object which is part of our AWS Direct Connect connection, is a feature that allows you to associate up to 20 Amazon Virtual Private Cloud, Amazon VPCs, 20 VPCs, or up to 6 transit gateways. So 6 transit gateways we have seen. So this with this up to 20 VPCs and 6 transit gateways from multiple AWS accounts with an AWS Direct Connect gateway. So it can be either 20 VPC in it, so 20 VPC can be in all 20 different AWS accounts, or 6 AWS transit gateways, which could again be in 6 different AWS accounts. So that is the maximum extent it can stretch. So this is multi-account support. And that's all. Thanks for watching.